15 years before Sandia National Laboratories reported their best ideas for keeping future societies away from nuclear waste, Sci-Fi author Arsen Darnay published Karma, a novel of retribution and transcendence. This novel, later republished as The Karma Affair, follows a group of closely associated people and their seemingly unending turmoil through the cycle of reincarnation. Their relationships are complicated. Some rivals, co-workers, lovers, or all of the above. Underlying the central story is the presence of the atomic priesthood. As the cast becomes further reborn well into the future, their souls grapple with supernatural forces beyond their comprehension, all along the backdrop of a mysterious wasteland. To better understand the significance of a future with this level of nuclear uncertainty, you can check out the previous episode that goes much deeper into nuclear semiotics, the atomic priesthood, and menacing earthworks. Here's a quick rundown. The United States hauls its nuclear waste out to the barren New Mexico desert, where it can be safely stored underground, in theory, for thousands of years. No system is perfect, however, and there is potential for this waste to become unearthed through human intervention. Say, for example, in the far-off year of 10,000 AD, a mining company wants to start excavation over the site that used to be known as the Waste Isolation Pilot Plant, or the WIPP. There's no guarantee that they would be able to read warning signs that label the nuclear waste far beneath the surface, as language could evolve well beyond our comprehension. Due to these unimaginable possibilities, researchers believed it may be at least possible to create a structure over top of the site, preventing any and all human interference. As one might expect, it proved to be very complicated. The consensus was that it's almost impossible to make something now and have it sit idle for tens of thousands of years. Something would have to be self-sustaining to last. It would have to improve upon itself to change with the times. This was the thought process of Thomas Sebeok, who proposed an atomic religion led by a secretive priesthood to keep the traditions and knowledge of nuclear waste as far into the future as possible. Much like contemporary religion, there would be ecumenical councils to ensure that their doctrine is in line with the central message. These are most similar to the councils of the early Christian church in the 4th century. While interesting, it seems a little more off the wall than other ideas for deterrence. So where did Thomas Sebeok get this idea? Arsen Darnay's Karma is listed as an inspiration for Sebeok in many places, but the book is hard to find. In fact, there exists only a tiny footprint of the novel and its influence on nuclear semiotics. There are no videos about it, and only a handful of Amazon and Goodreads reviews from users, some published by major critics, but it pales in comparison to the major success of Foundation within the sci-fi genre. The religion of science within Foundation might be the earliest analog to the atomic priesthood, but Arsen Darnay's Brotherhood, as they're referred to in the Karma Affair, is the most fully realized version of this idea. The novel was published in 1978 and initially takes place in the 70s, following Washington, D.C. bureaucrat Jack Clark. Evoking the aesthetics of a spy thriller, Jack is written as a James Bond-esque caricature of an American politician. Prone to jealousy and anger, he's especially protective when it comes to his romantic affair with office clerk Evelyn Bantry. Teddy Aspic joins them as a fellow employee for the federal government, but has the same feelings as Jack for Evelyn, creating a complicated love triangle within their workplace. In Washington, Teddy is convinced that creating a government program to oversee and found an atomic priesthood is in the world's best interest. He proposes it to Jack, who reluctantly agrees to give the project funding. Their friendly co-working relationship disintegrates after Teddy internalizes Jack's reluctance and lack of belief in the priesthood project as something much deeper. Soon, Teddy realizes that he and Jack have seen each other before in another life, spurring intense paranoia. Tortured by flashbacks of a previous life, Teddy recalls that his spirit was once incarnated in the body of a Holocaust victim in a concentration camp, and when he looks at Jack, all he can see is the latest vessel of the ruthless Nazi officer who inflicted that torture onto him. Teddy sees faint images of Jack in a multitude of his past lives, vindicating his paranoia that Jack will soon try to betray him. Their falling out is deepened by the complicated love triangle with Evelyn Bantry, who begins to resent Jack and his advances. Later, after a one-night stand between Teddy and Evelyn, Jack is driven to kill him, but fails, leaving out of an intense embarrassment. While the Atomic Priesthood project is granted its funding, Teddy Aspic uses his awareness of past lives for a greater purpose, to further research the soul and the body. He theorizes that souls exist within a separate world, being physically ejected from our bodies when we die, like Pikmin when they die, and thus re-enter the physical world at the point of conception. Becoming obsessed with this idea, Teddy builds soul catchers, giant machines with funnels to entrap wandering souls, and sets his involvement with the nuclear priesthood aside. After a time skip of several decades, the soul catchers have been constructed. Teddy Aspic operates a massive soul-catching site in the town known as Perpetual, New Mexico. At the same time, Jack, having left Washington out of embarrassment, succumbs to his alcoholism. He too becomes aware of his past life as an SS officer after embarking on a vision quest as a last-ditch effort to regain his sanity. Before he leaves, the wise Indian chief Walk-on-Air warned him that the desert in Perpetual, New Mexico was a bad place to die. The time skip to New Mexico only furthers Teddy Aspic's desire for revenge upon Jack Clark to give him a taste of his own medicine in the spirit world. Jack fails to heed the warning from Chief Walk-on-Air, and having grown old in his addiction, alone in the desert, he dies. Jack had no idea that he was about to find out what the chief meant. In his last moments, he was bombarded with the intense recall of his past lives, noting that in every one, he cheated another being, human or not, for his own personal gain. The chain of his soul's memory was too dark to see all the way to the beginning. Was he atoning for a great misdeed at the beginning of time? He didn't seem to know for sure. At the moment of his death, Jack found his way into the soul catcher like Teddy theorized. He had been feverishly anticipating the arrival of his spirit. To get revenge for every betrayal in a past life, torturous experiments would be exacted on his soul for a seemingly unending amount of time. Another time skip takes us several thousand years into the future, where Jack Clark is long dead, but makes a living as a traveling magician where his soul inhabits a man known as Magic Jack. Teddy Aspic, at the same time, inhabits the mysterious Fenwick. There, he leads a group of sweepers who live by collecting scrap in the wasteland, created through nuclear fallout. Due to the lack of human bodies in the apocalypse, souls are forced to reincarnate into other forms of life, leaving Evelyn Bantry's spirit in possession of a rabbit with hypnotic abilities. Due to this, she becomes a regular part of Magic Jack's traveling performance. Jack's caravan travels with Fenwick and the rabbit to visit the strange Brotherhood, carrying with them a being known as the God Bod, a living nuclear warhead. This living missile begs Magic Jack to drop itself off a mountain into the ravine, putting the God Bod out of its misery, while also ending the civilization that had been built out of the ashes of Apocalypse. The God Bod was in fact incarnated by one of Jack's previous acquaintances from Washington. When the crew meets the Brotherhood, the aforementioned group of atomic priests, they are far from the image of intellectual elites as one might have pictured. They are a horde of fanatical, emaciated, and zombified cult members. Having been permanently mutated by their stockpile of plutonium, they are referred to most commonly as Plutojacks. Interestingly, these sickly-looking Plutojacks wear suits and ties as their vestments. They also have cubicles where, as a ritual, they place one foot on top of their desk because they saw it in an ancient photograph, presumably of a 1950s-era businessman. This mirroring of atomic NASA-like culture is particularly interesting because it is perfectly captured by the work of Brian McGovern Wilson for his Atomic Priesthood project. What we perceive as out-of-date business attire and lounging around in the office are incredible examples of semiotics and how a sign will invariably change from its current context given a long enough time span. This is very likely the main reason that Thomas Sebeok's proposal of the Atomic Priesthood included his relay system, as the Brotherhood of Plutojacks did not have any checks and balances, having been corrupted by the signs and rituals of the atomic age on Earth. Karma's portrayal of an atomic priesthood acts as an inverse of the religion of science found in Foundation. There, they are cooperative and hungry for power, a far cry from the frail Brotherhood lounging around, waiting for any chance they get to drop the bomb and end their miserable lives. The two factions from each novel show the reader the idea of atomic religion at both its highest and lowest. While we don't know much about how Foundation's religion started, Karma kicks things off with the priesthood beginning as an idea presented to Congress. It's just a bunch of paperwork for the politicians. It's boring, and over 10,000 years, it ostensibly becomes muddled through bureaucracy, having no strong base to provide the upkeep that is so clearly required for a massive project like this. These feelings are echoed throughout all of nuclear semiotics, where one unidentified misstep in the present can cascade into thousands of years of turmoil. A tumultuous butterfly effect presents itself for each concept proposed by Sandia and the Human Interference Task Force, where anything can and will go wrong. Karma ends with Jack Clark breaking the cycle of betrayal from his multitude of past lives, and while beginning a new journey, sees that the Brotherhood of Pluto Jacks finally got their death wish granted. The Godbod, the sentient nuclear warhead with the soul of one of Jack's closest friends from Washington, D.C., had been detonated, creating yet another nuclear apocalypse. Though Jack Clark's shackles from his past lives had been broken, the human cycle had no choice but to continue. The show must go on.
Shit never is as bad as it seems. Fuck the lifespan, this is just one long dream. So try not to disturb me, not trying to be rude with you, just hope that you heard me. Now the world keep turning, since my mind was created, I was somewhere to hurt me. But every day I am learning, every bridge is different, be careful which ones you burn. Cliche sayings are here for a reason, like the ones you see showing up or the ones you see leaving. It's all about the balance of moves. When I'm in my own way, I try my best to move. Don't let my past mind choose, and don't let the present control me and the things I do.